Hello, my name's Karina Thompson, and in this video I'm going to introduce you to the Photostitch Wizard in the mySewnet embroidery software. The Photostitch feature is a great way to turn photographs into embroideries. It's straightforward, it's a fun thing to do. So let's start off by opening up the wizard. So I have the software open on my computer and I'm going to go to the Create tab, and there's the Photostitch here. Of course there is a Photostitch option on the welcome screen. So if I click on this, it offers me two options: Photostitch in the hoop or Photostitch in the rectangle. There isn't much difference between the two of them. It's mainly about the size of what you're actually going to, your output, your embroidery is going to be. So I'm going to click Stitch in the hoop. And so this is the wizard. We've got a number of options here, but to start off with, I'm going to click on option number 4, Create Colour Tile Photostitch Embroidery, basically because that's my favourite. So I'm then going to click Next. And here it's asking me, well, where are you going to get the picture from? So we've got a number of options. We could load a picture, we could paste a picture if we've got that on our computer's clipboard. It might be you have a scanner or a camera already attached to your computer. And there's also the possibility of basically either creating a new picture using the sort of draw and paint tool, or editing the picture if necessary. So I'm going to load the picture to start off with, and I'm going to start off with this picture here. I'm going to click OK, and this is a picture of my nephew Rufus on the sofa. He wasn't very well when it was taken, but I just think it's a lovely photo. So I am now going to click Next. Now the next window allows you to crop and rotate. So I don't want a lot of this detail, so I'm actually going to pull on some of these blue corner handles, basically to reduce, to come in and crop that image down. There's also the facility down here to either rotate, permanently crop, or correct skew if you needed to. So but in actual fact this is fairly straightforward. I'm going to just come in here, and you can see we've got a preview window on this side, so I can see what I'm actually doing. In actual fact, let's come up a tiny bit more on that. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to click Next. Now this screen enables you, if you want to remove some of the background, because the Photostitch procedure can take quite some time. It's a very, because basically this would all be dense stitching, and if it's in the background we might not need it. So there's what you can do is you could choose the eraser, pick up the eraser and start basically taking out the background if you wanted to. There's also an option here of the flood eraser where you can take away areas basically of similar colour, and that's sometimes a quicker way to do that as well. There are also smaller there's also smaller erasers if you need them, right down to a really teeny one, and I'm just going to zoom in just so that you can see, and that will basically actually take out pixel by pixel. Okay, and that's a useful way of editing up your drawing, your photograph if necessary. And most importantly, there's an undo button, so if you do make a mistake you can click undo, and can you see this area disappeared on there? And that's a useful thing to have, because sometimes of course we all make mistakes. Now what I actually want to do is use an image that I've cleaned up already of Rufus. So you can see I've taken out most of that background. In actual fact I've cleaned out a little bit, so it looks like this is his shoulder down there, just because I wanted a cleaner sort of portrait image, and I'm going to click next. So this is a screen that's basically asking you, do you need to kind of edit or tweak the color at all? What's quite useful is this red eye removal, that sometimes if you've taken photographs with flash, you can have a red eye, and that's a useful thing. This button here, in actual fact, I use quite a lot, and this is about what's going on with the color levels. And I find actually just so to desaturate it, to bring it down, can you see the color values on the preview are actually reducing, and they'd actually go all the way down to black and white if you wanted to. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to tweak this up, because I find just slightly moving that saturation value up, in this case to about 8, I find I get a better result. I'm now going to click next, and then this is a screen that's saying, well, how big do you want the design? So I'm going to be working is in a 200 by 260 hoop, so I've got that width in there, and then I'm going to click next. And this dialog window will often happen if there's an awful lot of stitchery, and of course this is very dense because every single part of this image will be turned into an embroidery, so it is going to be quite dense, but it's just basically saying this is going to take some time to stitch out. But like in all things in life, if it's worth doing, it probably takes some time. So I'm just going to say OK to that. And now it's actually breaking this down into a series of color changes, and you can see in actual fact we've got 29 here. It's quite sizable, but again, the more colors you have, the more accurate it's likely to be. But what you can actually find is by reducing some of the colors, sometimes, can you see over here, oh goodness me, I need to actually click apply. In actual fact, that hasn't made a huge difference there in terms of the quality of the image. And if I'm going to say that I'm happy with that, so again, I'm going to click next. And then my computer's now working on this. Now, the thing about the color tile is it basically takes the image and it reduces them down to little units, and the design is built from there, the imagery is built from there. And there are a couple of options in terms of the tiles. So for instance, this is the diamond, and let me just zoom in so that you can kind of get a closer feel of that. But in actual fact, there's also a square. Okay, and if you want to, you can also change basically what's happening in terms of the nature of that stitch. So again, I'm going to zoom in. So can you see these are satin stitches, but in actual fact we're going from point to point. So if again the machine, my computer's recalculating it, and that's going from side to side now. If you want to, you can actually put in a fill pattern, but because these units, you can see here, they're 3 mil at this point, that actually you're not going to get a lot of detail in terms of the fill. Now, my favourite in particular, in actual fact, is the hexagon. So I'm going to choose hexagon. Okay, and I just think the hexagons give a lovely quality, and let's face it, if you're a quilter like me, there's that whole thing that we love hexagons. Another thing just to you might want to think about, at the moment the width of each of these hexagons is set at 3 mil, and if you look here at what's going on with the stitch count, that is quite a substantial stitch count. That is nearly 250,000 stitches. You know, that's going to take some time, But if I, for instance, just move that up to 4mm, just letting my computer work it through, can you see that stitch count has gone? Basically, we've lost a stitch count of 100,000, so that will be quicker to stitch out. So bear in mind, you do get a little bit of a loss of quality. So for instance, if I go up again to 5mm, you'll actually see it's beginning not to perhaps look as good as 4mm. So I'm going to put that back. I'm happy with it at 4mm, and then I can click finish, and there's my embroidery in there. It's ready to go. I can do all the usual mySewnet options in terms of sending it to my cloud. If my Wi-Fi enabled machine was turned on, I could send it direct to that, or of course I could go file and then export it onto my memory stick in all the main embroidery file formats if you wanted to. But I don't know if you remember, when we first opened up the wizard, there were a couple of other options. So let's talk through what they are. So this, for instance, is basically the colour photo stitch embroidery. And again, I'm going to zoom in so that you can actually see what's going on. And this is much more like a sort of a scribble of colour in there. And again, you get a lovely effect. You can see it's, you know, this is working really well in terms of I can recognise Rufus in that. The second option on the wizard was to make a sepia photo stitch embroidery. So again, that kind of, and this suits in particular often historical family photos. I've seen some lovely work using the sepia photo stitch embroidery. And again, there's an option for a simple monochrome, essentially a kind of black and white. Or the bottom option is for a linear photo stitch, and this is what the linear photo stitch looks like. And again, if you look at the linear photo stitch is one of the most simple ways to essentially embroider a photograph, and you can see our stitch count is much lower than some of the other options I've showed you. And of course, finally, and in some ways, most importantly, it doesn't just have to be people that you're featuring in terms of your photo stitch outputs. So I hope you found this an interesting video. Please have a go digitizing your photos using the Photostitch Wizard. It's great fun. Happy sewing.